Maybe your dancer says that they're working on their nutrition, but behind the scenes, the meals are still skipped, the snacks aren't packed. It's hard to know when someone you love and care is truly ready to heal their relationship with food or if they're just giving you what you want to hear. So today, I want to unpack what it means for a dancer to finally be ready for nutrition support.
I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition. A dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals, and I'm here to dispel those.
Hi dancers, welcome back to Nutrition for Dancers with me, Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist. So if you are a parent, a dancer, maybe an educator, at some point you might have yourself wondered, they're saying all the right things, but something isn't adding up. Maybe your dancer says that they're working on their nutrition. Maybe they nod along when you bring up topics like food flexibility or even body image healing. But behind the scenes, the meals are still skipped, the snacks aren't packed, and that critical self-talk hasn't quieted. And that's frustrating, isn't it? It's hard to know when someone you love and care is truly ready to heal their relationship with food or if they're just giving you what you want to hear. So today, I want to unpack what it means for a dancer to finally be ready for nutrition support. We'll explore the concept of buy-in, the stages that a dancer often moves through in their healing journey, and this is really important, how you can help that process without pushing too hard and pushing too quickly. But before I dive in, go ahead and hit subscribe so you're first to know when I share new content. I'd also love for you to find me on Instagram. I'm at To The Point Nutrition, and I share a lot of tips and advice that uncover topics just like this. So let's start with a key term here, and that's buy-in. In the context of food and body image work, buy-in refers to a dancer's internal investment in the process of healing. It's not just about saying, okay, I'm ready to try this, or nodding and agreeing with your conversation. It's deeper than that. True buy-in means that your dancer is starting to believe in the value of healing, enough to try these strategies, even if they feel scary and totally out of their comfort zone. Now, buy-in, when your dancer is ready for nutrition support, it doesn't require a perfect path. It doesn't mean that they should be feeling confident in this process or even enthusiastic about it. But what it does require is curiosity, a willingness to understand or recognize that something isn't currently working and there could be another way. A flicker of hope that something could be done to help them feel better. In real life, what this might look like is a dancer saying, I'm tired all the time. Could it be related to how I'm eating? Or I've been cutting carbs for weeks and my dancing still feels so flat. Those are signs that your dancer is starting to question old patterns. And that questioning, that's everything. But it's very important to recognize that full buy-in and full readiness to implement nutrition support, this can also happen quite gradually. It's not a light switch moment. A dancer might begin feeling skeptical, resistant, and even dismissive. Don't give up. That doesn't mean all hope is lost. On the contrary, those early moments of ambivalence can be the beginning of true change. So to help us understand where your dancer is in their journey, I would love to introduce you to a really helpful framework. Stages of change, also sometimes known as, and this is a bit of a big word, but the trans-theoretical model. There are 6 stages for us to walk through, and I'm going to share what each one might look like in the context of dance. So stage 1, pre-contemplation. This is the I don't have a problem stage. Many dancers get stuck here in those harmful habits, restrictive eating, counting calories, overtraining. Unfortunately, the reason for this is that a lot of these behaviors are actually praised in the dance world. You might hear things like, I'm just trying to eat healthy, carbs are bad, or this is what serious dancers need to do. Even if a dancer is underfueled and overworked, they don't yet recognize that those behaviors are problematic. It's hard, but this is often where education matters most. Introducing credible voices, particularly a registered dietitian nutritionist like myself, can be very helpful here. This is a moment where I often encourage that dancers or dance parents consider my blog, dancenutrition.com, as an initial resource to just start learning that as a dancer, as an elite level dancer, you don't need to feel that restricted and that fatigued all day, every day. Now we move to stage 2. It's called contemplation. This is the, something's not feeling right here. The dancer starts to notice that what they're doing isn't working. Maybe they're tired, they're anxious around food, and they're not recovering well from classes. They're frustrated, but unsure of what to do. I often see dancers here who partake in orthorexic eating patterns or the obsession with eating healthfully. This is when clean eating is taken to the extreme. And these dancers, despite all of those efforts to eat healthfully, are recognizing that they are exhausted and on the brink of burnout. Here is where gentle validation can go a long way. For example, it makes sense that you're feeling so stuck. Do you want to explore some options together? And that's where we begin to fall into stage 3, preparation. This is when your dancer starts to uncover the idea that maybe I should try something different. They start seeking out information, asking small questions, especially ones that show interest in support. This is also a stage where my free resources, like the free trial of the Healthy Dancer, and discussions like this, my podcast, YouTube channel, blog, dancenutrition.com, these can be incredibly helpful because your dancer is now ready for information. And this is also a very vulnerable time because we don't want the information that they access to come from sources that might further push dieting or restrictive eating. Unfortunately, that's pretty common in the dance world. Low pressure, self-paced tools are really helpful at this stage, and that encompasses a lot of what I do here as a dietitian for dancers. Now, sometimes this stage can last the longest. It's the education. And with that education, ultimately comes the gathering of confidence to finally take those steps forward to stage 4, action. Because now we're into that point where it's, I'm doing things differently. This might mean starting to eat more regularly throughout their day, letting go of rigid food rules, exploring some comfort, exploring the fun in food, choosing rest over compulsive movement, and even speaking more kindly about their body. But remember, similar to the other stage, this stage is also a vulnerable point. There is so much misinformation around nutrition, especially on social media. So support from a registered dietitian nutritionist is highly encouraged here. Ultimately, that support can help get your dancer to stage 5, maintenance. This is when those changes start to feel like the new norm. This dancer is now sustaining newfound, more supportive habits. There's more trust, there's less fear around food, but it's not perfect. In fact, this stage can take years and there could be a lot of wiggle room here, a lot of ebbing and flowing and movement, especially if your dancer is still very much entrenched in the dance world. Remember, that misinformation and a lot of that messaging that got us to this challenge in the first place are still very much present. And even after a long time of doing this work, of eating in a more supportive way, your dancer might still need consistent reminders and follow-up, especially at points that feel more stressful, like competition season or nutcracker season. And of course, we do need to make room for the potential of a stage 6. This is relapse and recovery. Understand that relapse into old restrictive patterns is not failure. It is part of the journey. Sometimes dancers need to take 2 steps back in order to take a very large step forward. Maybe it's a bad injury, a triggering audition, a move to a new studio or company. Old patterns can unfortunately resurface. But the difference now, your dancer has a better idea of what they might need to feel supported, whether that's consistent meals and snacks or maybe support from a dietitian like myself. They know how to return to that healthier place. So if your dancer does ultimately take a few steps back, don't stress. What matters is that they can achieve that support again and not feel alone in the process. So now that we've gone through all of those stages of change, let's talk about why buy-in matters, but also why it's not necessarily required for support. Without buy-in from your dancer, without them really recognizing that nutrition support can be helpful, the healing process can become a bit performative. A dancer might say, I'm eating more, when they actually aren't, or yeah, I feel okay with my body now, when they're still very much at an unhealthy weight. You might even notice like very surface level compliance here, eating only when prompted, still avoiding snacks on busy days, or still speaking very harshly about themselves and their bodies. But here's the key, even without deep buy-in, and even without your dancer recognizing that nutrition support can be helpful, a dancer will still benefit from compassionate understanding. This is when they feel emotionally safe and respected, when they can vent about struggles, and over time, that internal motivation to seek another way will grow. You can still help to foster eventual buy-in by avoiding policing around food and also weight-related comments. Modeling, this is big, modeling food flexibility and food neutrality for yourself. Asking questions beyond food, like, how'd you feel in class today? Or what's been most challenging in class these days? And most of all is just validating ambivalence. It's very normal to feel conflicted, especially in a dancer's journey with food struggles and body image struggles. Remember, there's a lot of messaging out there that unfortunately conflicts with a lot of the more supportive behaviors that we clinicians, myself included, and mental health therapists really push for dancers, like rest days and eating more frequently, when a lot of the messages in the studio are about dancing more, cross-training more, and eating less. It's a lot of conflicting messaging that really can drive home a lot of that ambivalence for your dancer. Doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong, it just might mean that it's going to take a little bit more time to show them and explain that there is another more supportive way. So what does buy-in actually look like? Well, here are a few real-life examples of how you can know if and when your dancer is finally ready to start broaching the topic of nutrition support. The first is feeling curious, especially more than compliant. Your dancer starts asking why. Why are you adding so many carbohydrates to your plate? You're eating 2 slices of bread at lunch. Why are you doing that? And explaining, this is what my body needs for sufficient energy. I wonder if your energy would benefit from this, especially for tomorrow's longer rehearsal. You also may notice some language shifts with your dancer. Less shoulds, like, oh, I should be eating this. More wants, like, I want to add this because I need to feel more energized or focused. You can notice small acts of flexibility. So for example, trying a feared food when you're on vacation or out to dinner, resting without guilt, taking a day off from cross-training. Also, maybe your dancer is leading the way with finding support. They're journaling, asking questions, or revisiting a blog post or a resource on their own time. All of these actions might seem really small, but they do add up to huge movement. And those are the signs that change is definitely underway. So what's the takeaway here? Helping your dancer heal their relationship with food, it doesn't involve major convincing. It starts with connection. You don't need to lecture them or push them to fix anything. Instead, simply just be there, validate their experience and their confusion around all of those mixed messaging about foods, healthy foods, unhealthy foods. What does it really mean when you hear terms like an ideal dancer's body? And if you're struggling with a lot of these concepts, by the way, I approach all of them on my blog, so I highly encourage you check out those articles. I'll share links in the show notes. Your dancer might not be ready to meet for nutrition support today, and that's okay. They might not be ready next week. They might not be ready a month from now. But using those stages of change, you can meet them where they are, supporting their autonomy and their journey while sharing trustworthy resources. That is a huge takeaway today that I cannot stress enough. But vet those sources. A licensed registered dietitian nutritionist like myself, this is your best bet when it comes to food and nutrition advice for your dancer. I'm hoping this discussion gives you clarity and encouragement if you notice that your dancer is struggling. Of course, don't forget to hit subscribe so you're first to know when I share new, similar content. You can also reach out to me if you are unsure about how to take the next step with your dancer. We can chat about my services and how I might be able to help them move along with healing their relationships with food and body. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon.